Welcome, everyone. My name is Veronica, and today I have the honor of introducing Dean Jones, who has a long and distinguished career in student affairs. He is a professor and associate dean for student affairs at Roseman University, College of Medicine. Prior to coming to Roseman, he served as the associate dean for student admissions at Texas A&M School of Medicine and held a faculty appointment. Prior to that, he was also the Associate Dean for Student Affairs at Florida International University, Herbert Wertheim College of Medicine, where he also held a faculty position in the Department of Humanities, Health, and Society for 8 years. Prior to coming to FIU, he worked as Assistant Dean for Admissions and Recruitment at Loyola University, Chicago, Stritch School of Medicine for 7 years. Prior to that, he served as the Assistant Dean for Students, Diversity, and Community Relations at the University of Florida Frederick G. Levin College of Law. He started his career in medical education as the Director of Multicultural Affairs and Director of Medical School Admissions and Recruitment at the University of Buffalo School of Medicine and Biomedical Sciences. Dean Jones earned his BS in Psychology at St. Lawrence University in Canton, New York, and his JD from the State University of New York at Buffalo School of Law. Dean Jones, welcome, and Mr. Moses Ibarra, welcome too.
Thank you, Veronica. Wow. Again, I appreciate the love. This is always an interesting part of the world for us. Before I get started, I want my Director of Admission, Moises Ibarra, to go ahead and give us a little introduction on himself, because he's a huge part of this process.
Awesome. Welcome, everyone. I'm excited to be here today. My name is Moises. I am the Director of Admissions for Roseman University College of Medicine. I'm originally from New Mexico, and I moved out west with the mission, vision, and goals of the College of Medicine. So I'm really excited for you guys to learn more about us. Again, originally from New Mexico, I grew up about an hour away from El Paso in a small town called Las Cruces, and then moved up to Albuquerque. And my fun fact, I lived on the same street as the Jesse's apartment from Breaking Bad. So if you were a Breaking Bad fan, let me know and I can tell you all the cool places in Albuquerque and go visit. That's a little bit about me.
We are all Breaking Bad right now. So one of the things, Jobin has been a good colleague and friend for years now. I can't even tell you how long we go back. And one of the things that I think is important through this process is relationships are important. And so my job as the Dean of Students I'm responsible for everything outside the classroom. So admissions, financial aid, records registration, tutoring, academic support, personal counseling, career counseling, student groups, student organizations, and sort of like the vice principal. So if things happen while you're in school, I'm that person that you talk to. And so my role really is to guide students through the process. First of all, how do you get into medical school? How do you get through medical school? And how do you get a job? Now, one of the things that I think is important is that Roseman is a new medical school. We are the newest medical school on the block. And we are excited right now to entertain any application that you're interested in applying, because we are now recruiting a group of students to start in July of 2025. We understand that the recruiting season started so much earlier in the year, but we just received our preliminary accreditation in February from the LCME, which means it allows us to start recruiting medical students. It also means it allows us a chance to start bringing those students in and start a class of students in July. Our provisional accreditation will happen after our second year, and then full accreditation will happen after our fourth year. Now, why is that important? Because I know a lot of times students are wondering, a new school, what's up with them? What's happening? Well, as you know, as you heard from my bio, I've been doing medical education or I've been involved in higher education almost 25 years. And the majority of that spent in admissions and student affairs. So we have a group, my colleagues, my friends that I work with have a historic number of years under their belts. And many of us have been a part of creating other medical schools. For example, Florida International University, that I was a part of, was started by some of my colleagues who left there and came here to start this medical school. So what does that mean? That means we know what we're doing. We've built a curriculum really designed for your success. We've taken all of those years of experience to try to determine what's in your best interest. What kind of academic foundation will you need in order to be successful? What kind of opportunities do you need in order for you to grow? What kind of support systems do you need in order to help you get through the process? And because many of us have been in this so long, from a networking standpoint, I've created thousands of medical students who are now physicians all over the country. So we have the ability and the adaptability to provide students to get them into medical school, even though it's a new school, to get you to the end. So let me tell you a little bit about Roseman, because I think it's important. Now, Moises has a presentation that, if you don't mind allowing him to share his screen, we'll go through that, but I want to give you guys a little bit of an understanding of who we are as an institution. And so this is one of the things that we do when we try to help people understand who we are and going through that. So Moises, why don't you go ahead and start it, and we will probably tag team throughout this as we move forward. So as I said, this is our information session, letting you guys know who we are. And this is our team. So you have myself, I'm the Dean of Students. You have Moises, who is our Director of Admissions. Jasmine Sells is our admission coordinator, and Sydney Miller is my assistant, but she's also a strong part of our team. And so one of the things that we want you to understand through this presentation is we're going to give you some general guidelines. We're going to talk about who we are, our mission, our values. We'll talk about our curriculum or student services, and I'll go through each one of these other areas that are important. So one of the things that I want you to understand about Roseman University is that we are not young. We've actually been around for about 25 years. We started as a pharmacy school, which was initially just the College of Pharmacy of Southern Nevada. But then as we grew, we realized we couldn't name ourselves just the name of Southern College of Pharmacy. And we had three founders who started this with $5,000 back 25,000 years ago, said, okay, well, how do we change our name? So they literally just combined their names, because one was Kaufman, and then what was the other name?
Rosenberg.
Rosenberg. So they took Rosenberg and Kaufman and made Roseman. I know it sounds kind of catchy, but that's how we started. And so they then started a College of Nursing. And then we opened up a dental school in 2009, which is an amazing school. We actually have a curriculum where students, if you're interested in dental medicine, I think they have a 3-year curriculum instead of 4-year curriculum. And that program is really designed to get students out and early. And so it's been extremely well received. The medical school actually started, or they tried to start the medical school about 10 years ago, but they weren't successful. And so my colleagues, Dr. Joe Greer, who's our dean, came out here about 5 years ago. And they said, okay, we're going to try to get this started. And he came out with 4 of his colleagues. I call them the 5 horsemen. And so they literally put this process together. Our associate dean is Dr. Karen Esposito. She's an MD, PhD. We have Luther Brewster, who's a big part of our community health process, which we'll talk about in a little bit. We have Cheryl Brewster, who also was a part of our diversity efforts when we first came out. I know that word is still somewhat political, but again, we are talking about how we build community and looking at people from differences. And then Marion Gillis, who's also part of who's an ethnicist, who really came out and they tried to put this all together. And all of a sudden they started bringing their team members out. I came out 2 years ago. Helen Tempest, who's my colleague in academic affairs, came out 3 years ago. And we started building this process. We submitted our stuff to the LCME. And again, we got accreditation in February. We have 3 campuses. So where we're located is in Western Las Vegas, and so we're called Summerlin. Our main campus is in Henderson, and then we have another campus in South Jordan in Utah. And so this is who we are. We have 3 actually amazing buildings that we've already built for you. It's amazing the facilities that we have for you. And at some point we'll be able to do a tour for you. Go ahead, Moises. So what's our mission? Our mission is to really take students, work with some really good educators, build it around a community, and give a very inclusive, a very collaborative, a very safe, and what we try to do is reduce what we call toxicity and create a learning environment so that our students can succeed. Our ultimate goal is to make you a really good physician. And our goal is to help you look at from not only a rural, looking from an urban standpoint, but from a rural standpoint, because as much as you think Las Vegas is a part of this, is we're a huge city and it's growing significantly, As soon as you step 20, 30 miles outside of Las Vegas, it is probably, we call it the frontier. And so we are looking for frontiersmen who want to come to Vegas and really kind of grow their experiences. And we always do it with a sense of humility, excellence, and respect. Go ahead, Moises, you can take over the next one.
Alrighty, so some other programs that are offered through the College of Medicine, and they align with kind of what our goal is, right? So we have our Aspire program. So they're a pathway program for elementary to high school students, and they also work with college students to introduce them about the concepts of higher education, the concepts of building a pipeline to go to medical school. Nevada is they do a lot of work throughout the community in Nevada, just introducing them to the concepts of STEAM. Right. So I was really fortunate enough to kind of volunteer with them a couple months ago, and they did a workshop for elementary school kids about coding and seeing how excited they got about coding and the engineering and the just the whole aspect of it. So they're building the connection or the pipelines from all the different communities within Las Vegas to eventually generate interest in going to higher education or going into medical school. Another program that we also have that's associated with the College of Medicine is our Empowered program. And our Empowered program was actually founded by one of our pharmacy alumni who saw that there was a need for Las Vegas to support pregnant and postpartum individuals who use or have used opioids or stimulants. So they do a lot of great work in helping these individuals navigate the challenges that they may be having. And they receive their referrals from healthcare, addiction treatments, and other resources. So these are some other components of the College of Medicine. I believe, perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and share a quick video. And then this would highlight our third component, which is the Genesis program. And it plays a big role with our MD program as well.
Roseman University College of Medicine has embarked on an ambitious endeavor to create a community-dependent College of Medicine. A core element of making that happen is the Genesis program. Genesis is an experiential service learning opportunity for medical students. Its primary form of service is achieved through a series of home visits to medically underserved households. These household visits will not be your traditional medical home visit. It is more focused on So what are the goals of Genesis? There are many goals of Genesis, but at its core is to improve the health and social conditions of participating household members. There are also many Genesis learning objectives for the medical students. Some may be to describe the historical and economic development that influenced health disparities in Las Vegas and how it led to the creation of the Genesis approach. It may be about identifying the 3 social factors that can continue to impede the vitality of Las Vegas's underserved areas. We will also look at health disparities common to the Las Vegas Valley. It'll also be very important for students to understand and apply the concepts of household-centered care, as well as to introduce the integration of Genesis activities into the clinical practice courses that students are expected to take. So as faculty members, they are a key component to making Genesis successful. And they do that through three very important ways. First, they educate students on the core concepts needed to successfully perform home visits. Second, they prepare students for household visits. And finally, they supervise all home visits. So for them to be able to do this effectively, we need to make sure that our faculty are ready. Faculty will participate in a Genesis readiness process that includes SDOH and household centered care boot camps, readiness home visits, Welcome to Genesis.
Alrighty, so just to kind of highlight it a little bit more, so our Genesis program is embedded within the MD program, right? And what I mean by that is our students are going to be exposed to early clinical experiences where our students are going to the patient, right? So the example I like to give students is you apply to medical school, you get accepted into Roseman or the institution that fits you best, right? You go to residency, you're doing all these amazing things to help people. And a couple of years from now, let's say you work in a family clinic setting, you have a patient that comes to you and lets you know, hey doctor, this is what I'm feeling. And you listen to them and you come up with a healthcare plan, right? And you're like, okay, here are the medications, this is what I want you to work on. And then you schedule a follow-up 2 months later. 2 months happen, the patient comes back. And as a provider, you're asking, hey, how's that healthcare plan working? And the patient says, hey, unfortunately, I haven't been able to do anything of it, right? So what we're trying to support our students and to teach our students is that what challenges or what navigating circumstances did that individual have to get to see you, right? Were they unable to take their medication because they might have lost their job, or they have another family member who's in need, so they have to allocate their resources to the best of their ability, right? Do they have a transportation component of it, right? So there's a lot of different things that an individual faces outside of just the one-on-one appointment as a provider. So that's what the Genesis program is there to support you and further your development as a future physician, right? Again, it's a household-centered approach, and it's to train the future doctors in preventative health, provided service to the medically underserved, and integrated health services. So the video does a really good job. Dean Jones, do you have anything else you want to add to the Genesis program?
No, I mean, I think one of the things that we are looking for with students to understand is that you don't know what patient is going to walk into your office. And the problem that I've seen so often is that there is an underserving of or underappreciation of what your patients go through in order to get their quality of health improved. And if you don't have healthcare, typically the emergency room or urgent care is typically your front line. And we've seen a reduction in that. And so it does have a benefit, but more importantly, I think one of the things that is understanding where your patients come from to improve your overall quality of care. So if you tell a patient, here's your next appointment, go see this specialist, but they don't show. And then the next time you see them, well, why didn't you show? Well, did you ask the questions? Well, do they have to take off of work? Do they have childcare? Do they have transportation? I mean, it really is a better way to understand where your patients come from and asking more sophisticated questions. And because this is integrated into our curriculum, it provides you with a lot of very early clinical contact, because one of the things that you're going to start doing is learning how to do these assessments, and that assessment information and those skills carry over into the actual hospital setting.
All righty, a curriculum. And Dean Jones, you can take this one.
So one of the things that we've done is we've tried to really condense this process and looking at what do you really need. So a lot of schools have typically 2 years of their what we call foundational phase. This is where your basic sciences kick in. What we've done is we reduced that to 18 months. And then what we try to do is integrate this into what we call a block curriculum. And so therefore, as you're learning one part of the human anatomy, you're learning one part of the human physiology, you're learning one part of the human biology, we integrate those and try to teach those together. So therefore, you could combine these in some case-based and problem-based situations. So therefore, if you're learning about the heart and the cardiovascular system, you're also learning about the anatomy of the cardiovascular system. You're learning about the pathophysiology of the cardiovascular system. And then you learn the anatomy of the cardiovascular system. And then you learn it through case-based situations. And so what we're trying to do is take context and take information and put it into context. So when you see a patient, you start asking and integrating some of these things instead of looking at them as a biochemistry problem or a genetic problem or a physiology problem. That is one of the things that I think is very important. And so we're also creating opportunities for preceptorship. So you can actually go out into the community and work with some of our physicians. We now have relationships with all of the major health systems in Nevada and in Nevada, as well as particular in the Las Vegas area. And then you go into your clerkship phase. And so your clerkship phase is 12 months. And this is really where you try to figure out what you're going to do when you grow up. And so there's internal medicine, surgery, family medicine. Those are our three big ones. And then those are sort of like our 8-week blocks. And then we have 6-week blocks of OBGYN, pediatric, psychiatry. And then we also have elective time in there. So if you want to think about doing something else. The advantage of this is that because we are so small, we're only looking at 60 students in our first 2 classes. The hospital systems are so excited about having you there. And so the kind of attention you're going to get from our physicians, the kind of attention you're going to get from faculty, and then also from their specialty advisors, depending on what you want to go into is going to be extremely important. And then we finish off what we call our advanced phase, where we have our electives and our sub-internships. This is really where you start to figure out, okay, what do I want to, you already know what you want to do. So we start directing you into that course. We start putting you into some electives so that you can start understanding what that is, including emergency medicine, which is something some students want to go into, or if there's a specific type of specialty you want to go into. And then you do your sub-internships, and that could be here or away. And this is really where you actually start becoming what a doctor is. We call it doctor in training, where you start to manage patients, you work under the close supervision of a doctor, you start doing the differentials, the diagnosis, you start working with nurses. And so this is really where you start to get your opportunity to learn what career you want to go into, but also starting in letters of recommendation. And in that advanced phase, this is really where we do a lot of work with you to figure out how to guide you through the next stage of getting into residency. So when we talk about a readiness curriculum, we talk about a competency-based curriculum. So therefore, we're going to be doing a lot of active learning processes. Instead of just throwing things at you, we're going to throw questions or scenarios at you, and then you have to solve them either by yourself or with a group. And so what we've tried to do is integrate this curriculum so that it's very patient-centered focused. And so through our clinical skills and our clinical skills training, you're going to, again, use this holistic approach, this block curriculum, and really focus on competencies, trying to find certain levels, doing it in different contexts. So therefore, not only do you learn it individually, but you learn it in a group. You learn how to work together. You learn how to solve problems. I mean, medicine is sort of like a big puzzle. A patient presents to you, they start having these specific things, and you have to start narrowing down that differential diagnosis to figure out, okay, what is it that I'm really looking for? And so what we try to do is we try to train you to communicate. We try to train you to authenticate. What is it? How to work with it? We also teach you how to work with each other and respectfully look at how your patients are given, because your patients are your teachers. We usually have standardized patients who are going to be a part of this process. Our caregivers who are going to be a part of the process. Genesis program are going to be a part of the process. And all of the colleagues spread throughout our curriculum are going to be really designed to give you a very holistic approach to learning medicine. In addition to that, we have a lot of support systems, what I'll talk about later, but all of this really, what we call this readiness curriculum is really making sure that you meet a standard so that when you get ready for step 1 and you get ready for step 2, you're going to have the basic science foundation solid, and you're going to have a really strong clinical foundation to pass both of those exams.
So I'll talk a little bit more about our clinical partnerships. So Las Vegas is a pretty unique city where there's a lot of moving parts that come into it, right? So on the list or on the screen are a list of just the different clinical partners we have throughout Southern Nevada. And the reason why we like to share that with students is that you're going to get exposed to different clinical settings with different, they operate similar, but they operate differently. So as you're navigating the clerkship phases, you're understanding how a VA hospital might work different than a public health system or versus like a private hospital. So these are just different areas of clerkships that you're going to be exposed to as a Roseman student. Also, our faculty, right? Dean Jones has mentioned that although the College of Medicine is new to Roseman University and to everyone, the individuals who make up the faculty are not. So there is a well-rounded, just well of experience amongst our faculty. So on the screen are some of the specialties that our faculty have, and then we also wanted to highlight all the different degrees that our faculty have. Right, especially with the Genesis component and with the Roseman Readiness curriculum, is that there's a lot of different experiences that come together to provide you with a well-rounded education that's going to help you be a stronger physician for tomorrow. Perfect. So pioneer student, and I'll have Dean Jones kind of jump in on this one as well, is that our inaugural cohort sets the foundation for the College of Medicine. And what I mean by that is a common question we've been getting from students is, what's the culture of the College of Medicine, right? We have the staff and faculty here, and it's really healthy. But the students Dean Jones likes to say, they bring in a different flavor, right? So this inaugural cohort is really going to help build a legacy for Roseman students to come. Also, this inaugural cohort will be our first set of students who interact with residencies and become providers someday, right? So you will be representing the Roseman brand and expanding our network and opportunities. Again, you get to shape the campus culture, expectations throughout the college. And you also get an opportunity to name your learning communities. Part of the household model is that you are responsible for households during your time at Roseman, but you're in a team. Right? Because as a provider, you're not the only one who's helping a patient. There's other providers, there's nurses, there's techs, there's the front reception. It all works together, right? So you're working through your learning community to navigate medical school, to have the support systems that you need, but to also support those households that you're responsible for. And then again, the initiation of student organizations, research, extracurricular, and community outreach, and then becoming leaders who represent medicine and also represent Roseman University and the Roseman University and the college.
Yeah, I just wanted, I know someone I'm trying to look at the questions and see if I can answer them within the context. One of the questions was about the learning communities and not the learning communities, but the household visits. And yes, those are supervised. And they're supervised with faculty. So you go out with faculty. A part of this process is for learning within a group and trying to figure out how to solve problems, how to navigate systems. And then we also have a significant number of things set in place for security, as well as for your own personal security, for family security. And so this is something that we've done. I think I spoke to our colleagues the other day, and I think we have close to 300 families so far who've been recruited for the Genesis program. And I think the last piece that we're waiting for is just our students.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you. All right, student resources. Dean Jones?
So this is what I was telling you guys earlier. So outside the classroom. So when you come here, we have already we've done a lot of this work before. A big part of your success is both what happens inside of the classroom and outside the classroom. So outside the classroom complements what happens inside the classroom. And so one of the biggest things that we've done is we've actually hired an academic success team. Included in that academic success team are 4 individuals who are going to be dedicated to your academic success. And we're going to start right at orientation talking about how do you study. I don't think you guys realize the reward for all the hard work you've done is harder work once you see me. And then once you see me, the reward for harder work after that is even harder once you go into residency. And so as you I call it the gym, as you start to build up your academic strengths, some of you are going to need some adjustments. Some of you guys are going to need some coaching. Some of you, and I would say this to every student who walks into medical school, reach out to the academic success team within the first week, within the first 2 weeks, set up an appointment, talk about your learning strategies, because what you think you've done in undergrad may not always work in medical school. The amount of information that you're going to be taught, the combination of classes where you take a genetics, a cell, and molecular biology course that you might have took one of those classes for the entire semester is taught all together in one block in 6 weeks. There's a lot of information being thrown at you, that old adage of kind of a drinking out of a fire hose. Well, there's a lot of information. And so therefore, there are strategies to your success. Our academic advising team will sit down and meet with you and help guide you through a study strategy to help you grow with that. And again, the first class is the other part where when you're talking about that first class initiation, we are also looking for you guys at some point to become tutors. And there's some students who may be very strong in one subject area. You may be able to provide information for your colleagues. In addition to that, we also know that life happens when you're in medical school. And so we are hiring, actually in the process of hiring a personal therapist for every medical student. We also have other opportunities for you, but I know that all of a sudden stress, one of the other things that I've seen with a lot of medical students is you've been so successful in your undergrad career. Now you get to medical school and you're a small fish in a big pond. And you may not get those same grades that you did in undergrad. And all of a sudden, perfectionism kicks in, stress kicks in, time management kicks in. And knowing how to manage these emotions and still be successful is extremely important. So we're going to have a wellness team designed to help you with stress management, with life management, with crisis management, and anything that you need outside of that. And again, my role is I will tell you, I will give you a hug or a kick in the butt. I don't know what you need, but I will promise you that we are going to support you throughout that process. In addition to that, medical school is expensive. It's just, it is. And I'm not even going to sit up here and tell you otherwise. However, one of the things I think is important is that we have a strong financial aid team. We'll talk about this a little later, but because we are an institution that already has an established relationship with the university, and also because we already have programs, students are eligible for financial aid. They don't have to worry about coming in and trying to get private loans, some of those very high private loans. And I know Moises is going to talk about that a little later, but our team is going to help you walk through that process. It is imperative that you learn financial literacy. It is extremely imperative that you understand how you manage your finances. Because if you try to live like a doctor when you're a student, you will live like a student when you're a doctor. And so therefore, what we're trying to do is give you not only what you need to learn in the classroom, but life skills that's going to help you throughout your career. In addition to that, this first class will be a part of creating some of our student organizations. And so one of the things that I think is important is that there are going to be a lot of national organizations. There are a lot of things that help support your career development. That'll be a big part of it. We've already talked about our learning community process because our students will be integrated with the Genesis team to try to figure out, because there's a lot of other community events that are out there. And then the last thing that I will tell you that you don't realize it will be a benefit is our career and professional development will be expansive. Because it's a small cohort, we'll be able to spend a lot more time with you. I have students in every specialty all over the country who are in very powerful roles. Some of them are program directors and everything else. My dean, Joe Greer, has those contacts. Every one of our leaderships have created thousands of medical students, and that's our network. So I don't want you to be afraid of saying, if I come to Roseman, what's going to be my career outcomes? I promise you're going to have extremely good career outcomes because our curriculum is strong, our support is solid, and our networking is probably one of the most outstanding aspects of our program. Go ahead, Moises.
Apologize for that. It's Saturday morning. So our admissions process, kind of, how does it work, right? So we kind of follow the very traditional kind of process. We have our MCAS application, so we look for prerequisite coursework, an MCAT score within the last 4 years. Letters of recommendation, we look for a minimum of 3 and a maximum of 6 letters. We actually don't have a preference on who writes you a letter of recommendation. And what I mean by that is we understand that you have experiences and you have relationship or professional relationships with individuals from across all different types of fields, right? What we're looking for with those letters of recommendation also kind of coincides with the personal enriching experiences, right? So if there's an individual you know professionally, right, who can highlight your character, highlight your work ethic, highlight what makes you ready for medical school, those are the letters of recommendation we want to hear. Right. So I always like to tell students is, you know yourself best, you know who can hype you up the best professionally. Use those individuals when you're submitting your letters of recommendation. We will also have a secondary application. There is an application fee of $100. If you qualify for the FAP program through MCAS, that automatically gets waived for you. There's a Kira video assessment as well. And with the video assessment is we want to know who you are, just kind of like how we're talking right now is on camera. We have an understanding of who you are just from your AMCAS information and writing, right? We wanted to see your communication style. And then there's also some essay questions that are associated with that. From there, we will invite our candidates to interview with us virtually. And after that, we will conduct a holistic review. And actually, we conduct a holistic review throughout the entire process. Where's my mouse? Sorry about that. So a holistic review, right? And I always like to spend a moment on this is because we're looking for students who are academically competitive, but also holistically competitive. What that means is we want to make sure you can handle the rigor of the program, but we also want to make sure that you can handle or understand the impact that you're going to have as a future provider. And something we always like to tell students is how did your experiences prepare you for medical school, and how do those experiences prepare you, but how did it make you better, right? If you were a tutor, or if you were an RA, or if you volunteered, or if you were able to shadow, like those are all great experiences that just introduce you to it. But at the end of the day, are you able to explain how did that make you better? Why are you ready for medical school now based off that experience? So that's what we're looking for throughout our holistic review. So we do look at your academic performance, extracurricular activities, personal statements and essay questions, other experiences, your demonstrated interest, and we put that all together to make sure that we're reviewing applicants who are academically competitive, holistically competitive, and throughout their personal enriching experiences, you're able to articulate why you're a stronger candidate or how did that prepare you for medical school. Because at the end of the day, we want to make sure you're ready. So during that holistic review, that's kind of what that's what the admissions committee is reviewing. Our admissions prerequisites, right? They're pretty straightforward, right? So we don't have a very long list. So we look for a semester of biochemistry, a semester of social sciences, statistics, 2 semesters of biology, 2 semesters of humanities, and then 2 semesters of inorganic chemistry. I always like to highlight that we do look for social sciences and humanities because, again, with the Genesis component of the program, we're looking for those well-rounded individuals, and then preferred coursework. You don't need to have these in order to apply, but these are some other courses if you're trying to figure out how do you make yourself more competitive. These are some courses that will kind of help you will help you develop to get yourself ready for medical school.
The other part of that real quick is with the prerequisite, just our goal is to make sure you have a foundation for the MCAT exam. And most of these are really based on the MCAT. I always tell students to go to the school that has the most rigorous prerequisite requirements, and everything else should fall under there. The goal of this is academic readiness. And that's one of the things I think is important. There was a question in the chat about, do we do a holistic review without the MCAT? No, the MCAT is included in the overall review process because we want to make sure that you have an academic foundation. And so when we are looking at students who apply, our holistic review has to have at least a competitive MCAT score where we feel that you still have some academic foundation, and then combining with your academics, that both of those make the admissions committee feel comfortable. One of the things that I think is important to understand is that I think because students see us as a new school, they think we might be desperate. And desperate is not what we are. We're going to find good students in the process, but we want to find students who fit our mission, that you're academically qualified, but you also have a heart. I call it the head and heart factor, that academically you can handle what we throw at you, but your heart, or what you've done for other people, what you've done for things that show that you really have compassion, empathy, some of those other characteristics that are extremely important, those are huge components from what we look for. And so I think that's an important aspect of how we try to determine who fits the Roseman model. Go ahead, Moises.
Perfect. Thank you. So our timeline for this first cohort, right? So if it seems like there's a lot of moving parts and it's moving kind of quickly, is because we are. So we received our accreditation mid-February on Valentine's Day, opened up AMCAS probably on the 20th, and then the review process has started, right? So we're in the middle of reviewing applications, sending out secondaries, and interviewing students. And our goal is to have an inaugural cohort about 60 students by July 21st. Next year, right? So maybe you're not ready to apply, or you're just taking some time to prepare yourself for the next cycle, will be more on the more traditional kind of med school timeline. And the biggest thing I always like to tell students when it comes to your timeline is that you want to make sure that when you apply, you're applying in a timeline that's going to make you most competitive, right? So if you wanted it, and a good example is, hey, I haven't taken the MCAT. Can I take the MCAT in order to apply this year? You could, right? But do you feel that you're prepared and ready to take that exam, right? Do you feel that you have dedicated enough time for it, right? And if you feel like I don't, like I need more time, that's okay. Because when you submit your application, you want to feel that this is the most competitive, this is the most comfortable and confident I feel with this, right? So a lot of times students look at timelines, and from my experience, and they just want to submit it as quickly as possible. Take a deep breath, right? And how do you set yourself up for success? So when you do submit that application, every component of your application is as competitive as it can be. So tuition and fees, right? So those are our tuition and fees for the program. I'm not a financial aid expert. Roseman is actually a pretty small school. So we only have 4 colleges, right? So the interactions with our staff and faculty are great, and that goes with our financial aid office. So if you have any questions about financial aid, or hey, I want to apply to Roseman, how do I potentially pay for it? What can I qualify, or what I may or may not qualify for? Definitely reach out to our financial aid office. Sally, the director over there, is fantastic, and her team will be able to help you navigate all the different opportunities that you may have. So the academic calendar for this first year, and this is kind of a good overview of kind of what med school is going to look like for everyone. It's a lot of work, right? But we also understand there's a work-life balance, right? So we will have orientation week from the July 21st to the 24th. We do the white coat ceremony, which I'm really looking forward to. And it's a good celebration. Well, it's a great celebration of our staff, faculty, and you and your family and your support system in celebrating this great accomplishment. We celebrate on that Friday, and then we come back and start Foundational 1, July 28th, and we work all the way through Thanksgiving, come back, a couple more weeks, we go on winter break, and then we start phase 2 of the foundational phase in the spring. So it's a lot of work, but again, we're here to support you and help you navigate. It's a lot of work, but it's really rewarding for our students. So Dean Jones, I'll let you kind of take this before we kind of move into the Q&A section.
So this is overwhelming. So I want you guys to relax. You guys are the most neurotic group of people I've ever been around. The information that you read online breeds your neuroticism. You compare yourselves in ways that I find somewhat psychotic at some point. I'm not saying you're psychotic, but it creates this psychosis where you start thinking about things too much. You overwhelm on information that probably may not pertain to you. You compare yourselves to other people wondering, well, what's wrong with me? And a lot of times you're just not trusting yourself throughout the process. So one of the things that I want you to understand is you have to be yourself in this process. You have to understand if you're ready to apply, you guys know what the matrix are. You know what the numbers are. And I'm getting questions on here, well, what are your minimum MCAT scores? Well, one of the things I want you guys to know is that you see what students, what schools present when they do their averages, when they present their numbers or who matriculate. You can look at MSAR to see what numbers are. If you applied to Roseman and you didn't get a secondary application, the medical school admissions committee looked at your application, and then they probably didn't feel that either your MCAT score or your GPA was strong enough in order for you to move forward. So if you've applied and you didn't get a secondary, it's because we just didn't want to just take your money. And I know a lot of schools would just say to you, okay, well, apply and just put your luck out there and just take your money and you never hear anything back. Consciously and conscientiously, I just didn't think, we don't think it's fair to take somebody who we think they're not going to be able to move through the process. So I'm answering that question right now. Do we have minimums? No, because we just don't know what that means. What does it mean to be competitive? You guys know what that is. If you've gone through the process, you've submitted your application, and your application isn't moving forward, there's something on your application that's preventing you from moving forward. Do a self-assessment. Is it your MCAT score? Is it your GPA? Is it a combination of your MCAT and GPA? I can't tell you how, I just was on the phone with a young lady last week who had a 485 and then a 493 MCAT and had an amazing experiences, had the best story, had all this other stuff. The admission committee decided not to move forward their application. The reason why is because the problem is, if you get into medical school and you're not successful, this is a risk aversion process. We don't want to take your money or allow you to move forward, and we don't believe that based on your foundation, you can move forward. Every medical school is going to tell you this. And so if you're applying to medical school and you're not seeing success, or you're not moving through these different stages, there is something about your application that you guys need to look at. There has to be some level of self-awareness here so that you can understand, are you academically qualified? Because typically that's the first barrier that prevents students from moving forward. Most schools are looking at MCAT scores within the above 500 category, just most. And I'm not saying we are, because we are looking at everything holistically. But if you're not getting a secondary application, I'm just telling you right now, it's probably a combination of either your grades and or your MCAT score that may stop you from moving forward. The other thing that I think we're getting a lot of questions about is, do we just take Nevada residents? Do we have a preference? We are located in Nevada. Our goal is to train people to come here. However, we are looking for students from anywhere. So if you have an experience in your neck of the woods that you think similarly situated or similarly has something very common with what we're dealing with here in Nevada, you may be a good student for us. So I don't want you to think just because you're an out-of-state student, you don't apply. We're a private institution. We are looking for students who fit our curriculum. So if you are applying, I don't care where you're from, you can apply from all over. Now, we're not taking international students. Right now, we're just not accepting any international students. We just cannot. And there's so many different complications to that. So I'm just answering that question because that's another one that we get quite often. So these are the kind of things that I want you guys to understand. If you're not moving forward in a process, you have to look at it and say, okay, where am I in this? And what do I need to do in order to get through that? Now, one of the things that we've tried to do in the past is to kind of work with students, but based on what we're trying to do in the time, I can't sit down and individually meet with every student to give them advice. It's just tough right now. In the future, when we start to spread this out and I get more staff, I don't have a problem at some point in the year sitting down with a student and going through that process. We just can't do that right now. So embrace who you are, know who you are, and then if you have additional questions, by all means move forward. I'm just trying to answer some of the more general questions about, because what we'll typically get is grades and MCATs. What's your minimums? What are you looking for? What's your requirements? That is something that you guys will know. If you're not successful, that's kind of where I kind of see a lot of students having some of the bigger struggles. So with that being said, what we'll try to do is, I guess we'll go ahead and answer some questions. And so I've been trying to look at the chat questions and trying to answer some of the questions that we're getting, or at least combining some of the questions. But is there any additional questions that we missed, Veronica?
We did miss a few. One of the questions from Anna is, how is Roseman considering post-bac / non-traditional applicants?
We love you.
Yeah,
guys. Go ahead.
I'll take it. Yeah. So again, it goes back to that conversation about Dean Jones was mentioning about being competitive, right? So the admissions committee does a really good job in understanding that students are coming from different experiences, different backgrounds, right? So if you have done a post-bac program and you did really well in it, and it's in a combination with a good MCAT score, that will help maybe overcome a lower undergraduate GPA. So we do look at them. And the same with non-traditional students, right? Is that I know I was a very different student 10 years ago. So those experiences in combination with your academic preparedness all works together. So it's not a very clear cut, yes, we prefer them, no, we don't. We're looking at everything to make sure that it's aligned with the curriculum of the university.
The only thing that I would add to that, though, is that I do have experience with students who've been out of school more than 4 years, who sometimes struggle trying to readjust academically. It's like being in the gym. If you haven't been in the gym in a long time and you go back there and you think that you can do what you did 4 years ago, I promise you, your muscles will tell you very quickly it's not going to happen. However, as you start to incorporate and do that stuff, it makes a difference. But the problem in medical school is that you have to come in with at least some kind of academic strength under your belt, because your academic muscles do atrophy. And so therefore, there is some caution. I'm not saying with every student, but if you haven't taken a class in 3 or 4 years, and again, sometimes, again, you're not moving forward, it may be somebody thinks you may be an academic risk based on the fact that you haven't been in school in a while. These are just small considerations. It's not, I'm saying this is determinative, because there are some students who are just had to work, or they're involved in research, or they're doing some other things that can supplement that kind of academic growth or academic strength. But that's something to consider as you guys look at your overall applications.
The next question is the curriculum pass-fail?
Yes.
Good question. Yeah, good question. So the first year would be pass-fail. And then when they move into the second and third year, in the fourth year, they move, or the foundational phase is pass fail. And then the other 2.5 years is students are able to earn pass, high pass, and honors. So different distinctions just to honor the work that they're doing in their clerkship phases.
Another question is, how much of the class is currently filled?
That's a good question. Unfortunately, we're unable to share that. We're just in the middle of our review process. But so can provide more detail on that. I apologize.
But we're actively recruiting students, if that's a better answer.
Yes.
Can I just add one thing? 100% of people that don't apply don't get in. So if you want to get it, like, doesn't matter how many are you taking? 50 students?
60.
60.
So obviously Dean Jones wouldn't be here if he had all the 60 filled and ducked in order, So and they've only started this process a month ago. So I would probably say just guess is there's good numbers that are open. But again, you only need one spot. Doesn't matter if 58 are filled and whatever. So you guys all get involved in these like number games and and I know game theory is such a wonderful thing, but that's not something that's possible. So if you don't apply, you're not going to get in, and that's 100%. So
we are also accepting applications, even if you have not applied or you thought it's late. AMCAS is still open now. You still have, and the thing about it right now is that they're between seasons. So if you submit an application, there's still time to do your letters of recommendation. There's still time to get your transcripts verified. This is their low time of the year, so it probably shouldn't take as long. So that's why, again, I reached out to Joman and said, hey, listen, let's sit down and have a conversation. If you have students who are interested, that's the reason why we're here on a Saturday. This is my therapy time. This is my golf time. So I just want you guys to know how important this was for me, because I was like, this is the time when I find my little Zen moment. And so I just want you guys to know how committed we are to you.
Thank you. We have another question that will probably encapsulate a lot of the ones that are in the chat right now. And it's from Matt. He says, hi, I submitted my application the first day the application opened. I saw the secondaries will be sent out to selected applicants. If a student has not received a secondary by now, does that mean that they were not selected to complete the secondary application?
Yeah, I answered that question. And so, yeah, that was it. I mean, again, the admissions committee will look at students and they'll look at a combination of things. They'll look at your MCAT, they'll look at your GPA, a combination of both. If the committee does not feel that you're a candidate that would qualify for moving forward in the process, you probably won't get a secondary application. And that's because we're not going to just take your money. And I mean, I'm trying to be fair and honest about this. And I am probably one of the few schools that's trying to be conscientious about not taking advantage of students. But I know that it's one of those things. Again, and but to Joman's point, you still have to apply to figure out whether or not you will compete in that process. But you have to meet some kind of academic qualifications, and the committee will look at that. The admissions committees look at that to make a determination who will receive a secondary application.
Thank you. Does the school rotate or learn about specialties such as oncology or radiology?
Yes, actually we do. And so and that happens a lot of different ways. So initially it starts off with student interest groups. And so when students start to create interest groups, it depends on what kind of specialty they're interested in. So we've had surgery interest group in the past. Well, these at a different institution, but the kind of groups that we'll create. Oncology interest groups. And what happens is they bring speakers in, they bring in community members who work within those fields, and they come in. Our students who are interested in that connect with them, and they start to do these organic mentor relationships. And then in the third year, and then also in their fourth year, they get a chance to go ahead and explore those specialties, even in more in-depth opportunities. And so there are several different ways to kind of look at this throughout the continuum of your medical school education.
Thank you. The next question is, do students have to pass step 1 before being allowed to start the clerkship phase?
Great question. I'll take this one because I really like answering this one. So within our program, our students will actually take their step one after they start their clerkship, just because Dr. Esposito and the academic affairs team understand that the step one exams are moving more towards curricular-based questions, right? So it is really hard to ask students about a clinical or a clerkship question when you haven't been exposed to that. So students actually will start their clerkship phases and then will take step one shortly after that.
And then the question is, well, when do I take step two? And I think that just
You muted.
Yeah, we lost you there for a second. Oh, uh, I will answer from where he took off. So the question Dean Jones was trying to get to is, when do they take step two? Oh, is he back?
Are you back?
Some just kicked me out. I don't know. I'm sitting there feel like all animated and so step two, so you take step one, and then what happens with step two, it's really individualized. I always tell students you want to take step two before you submit your residency application. Now, the way the step one works and step two works a lot, and the way our curriculum is built out, you can really take step one and then automatically go and take step two. Or maybe you want to go and do a rotation first and see exactly, or do an internship or an internship and figure out, okay, is this the career that I want to go into? It's really an individualized time where we will, again, give you time, first of all, to study for step one. And we also give you time to study for step two as well. So that's built within the system. And then you also get a lot of academic support. All of our exams will be NBME based. And so you're going to be taking NBME exams in your foundational phase. That really is to mimic the kind of questions you're going to start to see on step one. And so all of this is kind of the way we integrate your opportunity to succeed. And again, we also have academic supports. There's also Q Banks, there's Scholar RX. There's a number of different programs that we have to build your foundation, actually have as a resource for you as you're getting ready for those substantive exams. The last thing with that, though, then is looking at the career services. As I said to you earlier, we have a very expansive and a very individualized and a highly supportive career services team that will be ready for you in terms of individual specialty advisors, as well as just overall career advisors to help you get through the process.
And then real quick, I was just kind of skimming through all the questions in there, and I think this will answer a lot of questions. So there's a lot of questions about like, hey, I submitted my secondary, or I reached out to the admissions office and they let me know that my application's in review. So with that being said, is the admissions committee is reviewing your applications, right? And what I mean by that is we understand how much work you put into them, and a secondary or a primary application has a lot of information on there. We're people too.
We lost you too.
We lost you, Moises.
We lost your voice.
It ended at "we are people too," which is where we are. And we are also trying to be very conscientious and trying to find a way to help you. I'm just finishing his thought. Trying to realize that we are inundated trying to build a new system, and we're trying to be conscientious and supportive of what your needs are. However, I always equate this process to a dating game. You know, the AMCAS application is the dating service. You are going to put your application on. It's an online dating service. And so therefore, we look at your application. We try to determine if we're going to go to the next step. If we like you, we invite you in for a date. You get dressed up, at least the top of you does. We ask you all these awkward questions. If we fall in love with you, we give you a love letter. We say, hey, let's have a 4-year relationship. So through that process, it's trying to figure out if we like you and you like us. What I would caution some of you guys is, please don't be a stalker. Please don't try to just be over anxious to a point where you call us every day wanting some kind of update. The problem with that is you're going to get some diminishing returns, because now I see somebody like that as someone who's too anxious and may not be able to be relaxed in a very stressful situation. All of these things play a part of the process. And if I find any student who comes across to my team in a way that is disrespectful, dismissive, or anything, I promise you, you're not moving through our process. I understand how anxious this is and how stressful this process is. But I want students who are respectful, who are courteous, who are honest, because if you're disrespectful to one of my team members, I look at that you're going to be disrespectful to a nurse or someone else who may not be in a power position. So therefore, your interactions are extremely important as you move through this process. So be respectful, be courteous, and this isn't just for us. This is for every school that you go to, because I promise you, if you get red flagged, and this is again, that's just a term where a student who is getting looked at, I remember we just sent out our applications and there was a student who just kept almost every day, nonstop, calling 3 or 4 times. That is a problem for us only because we're trying to be conscientious of it. And you have to be respectful to know that we're doing what we can with how we have it. So I just want to share that message because I do know that it's something that a lot of students are anxious about. They don't know how to control it. But how you respond, every piece of the component, however you come across, everything is being evaluated to make a determination of how you move forward in the process. I hope that makes sense.
Yes, thank you. One of the other questions that has come up is there student housing available? And if there's not, how is the traffic out there in Nevada?
So I will answer this question because coming from New Mexico, I don't think there's ever traffic, but Dean Jones, a lot of other people from Miami, no, our traffic is very minimum in Las Vegas. So probably at the most 20 minutes, 25 minutes. And then housing, Roseman unfortunately doesn't have any housing options for our students, but Las Vegas is pretty, there's a lot of different options for different amounts of budgets too. So you'll be able to find something that works for you and works within your range.
Yeah,
And go ahead.
just gonna break it down. You're not gonna be driving through the strip every day to get to school. That's not the real Vegas, by the way. I just want to tell this to people because everybody always thinks of Vegas like the strip. And most people that I know that live in Vegas never go to the strip, never drive there.
Yeah, that's correct.
You know, you just read my mind because I wanted to kind of just talk about Vegas in a whole. I lived in Chicago. I've lived in Miami. I was in Texas. I've lived in big cities. And so the traffic here is minimal compared to where I've lived before. The thing about this city that I actually like more than I thought I would is that there are communities that have so much access, so much just culture, if you will. We're in Summerlin, so we're the west side of Las Vegas. We're in a really nice neighborhood. It's a very safe neighborhood. You can get around but you will need a car. I'm just going to put that out there. You will need transportation because that is going to be important. Especially when you get into your clinical years, you're going to have to go to all of our different clinical sites. And so therefore a car is going to be something that's almost going to be mandatory. So I'm just going to throw that out there right now. I know a lot of people who don't have vehicles, but that is something that is going to that you're going to have to consider in terms of where we are. That being said, though, if you're a foodie, you're going to love this town. If you're entertainment, you're going to love this town. My wife has been to more shows than I can blame it. And you see my golf clubs in the back. I have a really nice opportunity to find my therapy. And so there's so many great opportunities here that if you step away from the strip, what it does is it gives you an advantage. So, and then I have had more people visit me here than I did all the time I was in Chicago. So it's just one of those things where there's a lot more advantages to being in a city like this. Now, that also being said, there's so much need in this city. And there's so many people who are underserved, who live on the margins of our community and our society. And those are the folks that we're trying to have an impact for. So though there's this opulence there, there's also this need. And so this is the dichotomy of what this community has to offer you. And I think the richness of that makes this such an exciting opportunity.
Thank you. We have a lot of these questions come up in the chat, so maybe we can take care of the questions, which is, are there merit scholarships or avenues available to allow for free tuition or maybe other types of scholarships?
Yeah, so our scholarships, right? So it kind of goes back to, scholarships will be available, and they're considered at the time of admissions, right? So no extra application is needed. And then again, there's a financial aid component too. And our financial aid office does a really good job of kind of showing all the options that a student can qualify for, and then helping them navigate from there. But we will have scholarships that are available to students.
Okay, thank you. Another question is, are you offering tours, campus tours?
Good question. So unfortunately, not right now, just because the buildings are all finalized, but the facilities team is doing a really good job of putting the last minute touches on the computers and the TVs and running all the cables. So for example, like in our student commons area, there's cables that need to be finalized and like covered so no one trips over them. So that's what we're waiting for. They're just putting the last minute touches on everything. And then we'll be able to start offering tours in the future, but sooner rather than later, I think.
Thank you. Other questions that have come up are about accreditation. How long does it take to become fully accredited?
Great question. Great question. So the accreditation process, so even though we received accreditation in February, there's been a lot of moving parts prior to that. So for example, last fall, the LCME came and met with myself, Dean Jones, every leadership within the College of Medicine, and pretty much asked us if you were going to open a medical school, how would you do it? And we had to provide these are our process, these are our procedures, like all sorts of information. And then from there, they kind of took the recommendation, kind of going from there. So I always like to let students know a lot of work came into on the back end once we received accreditation. There will be the accreditation does allow us to have students enroll and work their way through the program. And then there will be a second stage, which is called provisional, later on in the cycle after year 3 of this inaugural cohort. And pretty much what it is LCME comes back and lets us know and asks, hey, this is how you said you were going to do it. Is it working? Or what are some areas to improve? But a kind of a question that also comes from this is how does that impact residency? LCME wouldn't have given us accreditation if they didn't think or felt comfortable with us having students apply to residency, right? So just talking with our director of accreditation, that is an option for our students as well.
Can I just add one more thing too? From the list of the people that are there, I mean Dean Jones, but also other folks that are there. This is not their first dance. They've done this before. And so if you're like, bottom line is you need that one admission. And that's the only thing that matters at this point. The people that have done this is not their first rodeo. They've done this before. This is not something that, people just decide to do. It's a very well thought out process, and people have done this for a long time, and they're getting paid as well to do this. So it's not like this is not like they're not doing this in the background, but also Roseman's been around for a bit, so it's not like I would say it's good to be cautious if there's like, if Veronica starts a medical school somewhere in, I don't know, Arizona, and it's like by itself and in a building,
Leave Veronica alone.
I'll be more worried about that than I would with something that's been affiliated with a system that's been there for a while. They've graduated, pharmacy and nursing and dental and other things. So I think your worry, there's hundreds of things you should worry about, but this one should be like number, I don't know, 107.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Joe. And I mean that I came out here, and there's always risk. I mean, I came out here before we even had accreditation. I hired Moises and said, Moises, hey, we're going to get started. There's a leap and a prayer here, but this is what we have. And I knew who I was coming out here to join. And I know my colleagues, and I know we are like everybody, we are built to succeed. And so, and because we've done it in so many different arenas and we've done this for so long, you really haven't, I know you saw a picture of the video, you saw those buildings. Each one of those buildings contain a part of our medical school. And the building that I'm sitting right now, because someone asked, we don't have an MD PhD program yet, but that our hope at some point is to grow one. And so we are built in a research building right now that we've retrofitted just for some classrooms. But again, in the building that Moises sits in, we have our learning communities, we have our library, we have our small group learning rooms. And then we have a large group, another building where we have a large classroom. We have our clinical skills and all. This is all built out. Our physical infrastructure is solid. Our financial infrastructure is solid. Our relationships with our the hospitals in this community couldn't wait for us to join. I met a doctor on a golf course 2 weeks ago, and he was like, when you get your students, please let me know. I want them in my space. I went to get an eye exam. The ophthalmologist was like, listen, when you get your students, let me know. The excitement that we have, the support that we have, and the experience that we have, I am so not worried about a student getting to the finish line. Our accreditation is going to be built upon you. And that's why we're looking for what we call pioneers. If you ever started something, you know how, we're doing our admissions process. And I told Moises, I said, well, you know what? That was a great idea. We're going to make an adjustment. That's exactly what's happening. But we have the experience and the know-how to make sure this is work. So I don't want you to feel like this is a risky endeavor. I wouldn't have moved my entire family from the East Coast all the way out here if I didn't feel that this was going to be successful. So therefore, I know where I am, and I'm confident in terms of who we are moving forward. We are expecting full accreditation by the time that first class graduates. And so you will be graduating from a fully accredited medical school, and I will guarantee you that. And I'm not trying to, I'm telling you right now, with our infrastructure and what we have in place, that's the least of my concerns.
Thank you for that. Another set of questions that have been coming up is about research opportunities, if there's any research opportunities or resources available.
Yeah, great question. So to kind of just highlight something real quick from Dean Jones is that the building he sits in, it used to be a cancer research center. So as Roseman was expanding and looking for a college of medicine, that's kind of where they kind of landed. So we still have some partners there that are conducting research, and we also just have the space for a lot of wet and dry labs there too. Because I worked at different institutions, and just having the actual building to do research or the space is kind of hard, but we already have that ready to go. With research within the curriculum, we're not a super research heavy institution, but we do understand the importance of research within the curriculum and preparing you, right? So you do get exposed to the concepts of research. How does it impact? Because it's gonna help you understand certain concepts a lot stronger. And then the other thing too is if you're interested in research, our faculty are here to support you and help you navigate that. Another question we kind of get from students is, am I able to take a gap year to do research before residency? You are able to, but our faculty want to make sure that, are you doing research for the sake of research, or are you doing research because it's going to make you better? It's going to make you feel more comfortable in the role that you're going down the line. And they will have that conversation with you, and also have the conversation of which research is appropriate for you for the type of career you want to have, right? If you want to work in the public health sector, what areas of research and opportunities are available to you to help you prepare you for that? But that's a really good question. The research is available to our students, but our faculty will kind of have that conversation and kind of come up with a game plan to make sure it fits our needs, but also make sure it fits your needs for your career path.
Thank you. Another question that came up is in-person lecture mandatory, like an 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. or 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. kind of schedule for students?
Yeah, great question. Another great questions, everyone. So with the schedule, and I'm trying to picture the thought in my head is that there is built-in time for the Genesis component and the Genesis visits, right? So you won't have lecture when you have the Genesis time. And then it's also built-in time for you to study, but there's also built-in time for the didactic or simulation or anatomy lab, whatever you might need for that block or that lecture. So there is time for you, right? And it is for the 8 to 5, but it's not going to be, you're going to be in class from 8 to 5. There's different components that go through that. And then the other component too with lectures, it's totally going to depend on who you have as a faculty, right? Some faculty want to make everything required, some don't. Some may make like, hey, this lecture on Thursday is required, so I need you to be here. But again, how do you set yourself up for success, right? Going to class is really important. We also understand there's a lot of moving parts, but our expectations that our students are able to attend, but there's the mandatory component of it is going to depend on the class.
Thank you. And another question is, let's see, it's someone with a unique situation. Does the school consider students who previously attended a U.S. medical school but had to leave for family or personal reasons?
Yeah, so kind of going off this, I'm going to kind of loop this with gap year or an institutional action or anything that might happen in an application. So when we're looking at things, and I see this all the time with students, is they address it, but you want to make sure you find an appropriate level that you're able to address something. And what I mean by that is, like, Moises, did you take a gap year before applying to medical school? I did because I wanted to focus on my grades. That's the answer, right? But it's Moises, did you take a gap year to apply to medical school? I did. There were some family situations where I had to move back home and help my parents navigate early retirement, but I also was able to get experience and spend more time on the MCAT to prepare me and make sure my family situation was good in order to for the next step. So when highlighting those things is you want to make sure that you balance giving sufficient information, but also for the committee to review, right? So the admissions committee has to review everything and they have to read your answers. So sometimes just saying, hey, I was dismissed from another program because, or not dismissed, I withdrew from another program because of X, Y, and Z, like adding a little bit of why, but not going into too much detail will kind of help students navigate that.
Can I just talk a little bit about the application because we're getting close to the end, and I want a couple of things that I think are important for people to realize. First of all, some of the red flags that I see in applications are what I call incomplete applications. AMCAS gives you 15 experiences. You should have 15 experiences. They all don't have to be medically related. And I can't tell you how many times I see students who just put 5 or 6 or 7 experiences and thinking that that's going to be beneficial. When we're looking at things holistically, everything matters. Any work experience, any job experience, anything life experience that's giving you a skill, quality, or trait should be on your application. The second part of that is when you're giving those explanations, giving context to each one of those things to describe them, what you learned, what was the value, how did it impact you, and what did it give you? The other thing that I find extremely important is the secondary questions, because we do look at those. And I look at those because to Moises' point, we ask you, well, what have you been doing last year? If you've had to reapply, how have you improved your application? Tell me anything else you want me to know. And I know we have a couple Nevada questions on there, and students are like, oh God, are they just focusing on Nevada students? No, if you have a relationship with something in Nevada, if you've lived here, you have a family member, that's great. We like to hear that because it shows at least some causality, but that doesn't mean that's not a determinant. It doesn't determine that we're going to not look at you because you don't have that. Make a connection. If you're part of the world that has something that's connected to Nevada or is similarly situated, make that cause and effect and saying, hey, this is how I can see myself being there. And then the last thing is that we give you this opportunity to tell us anything else about you. I'm giving you every chance to tell me about you. If there is a blank space there, you're doing something wrong. Give more than less. And I can't tell you how many times students who fail to underrepresent themselves because their applications are incomplete. I pay more attention to the secondary questions that I do than letters of recommendation, only because letter recommendations should be good. They should be write something. And if somebody writes something horrible about you, again, but you should, and then even with letters of recommendation, you want to make sure you give your letter writer enough information so they can talk about you, not this is you're in their class and you got an A in it. So these are the things that I think are important overall in an overall application that will make it stronger. But there are a lot of times I look at students who might be academically qualified, but then I look at their application and it's just weak. And they don't have any tie into medicine, why you want it, what's your motivation. So those are the things that I think are overall important for an application to be successful and ultimately just be yourself. I'm looking at some of these questions on here. And again, your neuroticism just continues to flow. Like, tell me about how you prepare a student for residency match. You haven't even gotten to medical school yet. Get into medical school. Get that chance first before you think about what's going to happen 4 years from now. It's so amazing to me how you guys get lost in your neuroticism and you're asking questions about things that you should already know. There's information out there. And I know you're looking for somebody to give you a face, an opportunity, but a lot of times all we see is your application. That's what we have to look at. So give us as much as we can to figure out who you are as an individual. And then hopefully that will be enough in order to move forward.
You have to learn how to walk before you could run. So thinking about residency as a pre-med is kind of thinking about, I don't know, me how to stand on the podium of the 100-meter Olympic dash without ever running. So it's like it's really far away. And I think and I think is being ready and prepared for that moment. And this is the moment that you should be worrying about. Worrying about residency is so far away that, and I think it's the funny thing is a lot of people go in and say, oh, I'm thinking about doing, X, and they end up doing other things. So yeah, so just, like it's
You know,
good to be aware of it, but worrying about it instead of focusing on your 15 activities is, it's selling your present for your for something that's not going to be there, that
no,
if you don't take care of it now.
yeah, but the response that, knowing about the residency is whether or not you're going to invest in us. See, this is the kind of response that I look at and I go, does this student really understand what's going on? And so, again, a part of knowing where you are in getting through this, and as Jobin said, some of you guys just need one opportunity. That's all. And unless you have multiple opportunities in a lot of different places where you can then start making those more educated guesses, getting in the door is the biggest issue for most students. And so I just want you guys to realize that I'm being tough, I'm being critical, but I just want you to understand that these are all the parameters that we look at when we're trying to focus on students and trying to get you to the next level. So,
And
go ahead, Jobin.
no, go ahead.
No, I'm done.
No, it's just, yeah. And I think like residency is so much more based on, how you do in your classes, how you do on your rotations, how you're being graded and evaluated by physicians. And I would tell you, this is where I work at, some non-physicians are involved in the interview and process and the selection, because we want people that we actually like and we want to work with, that have humility, that are kind to people. And those are all things that, I'm sorry to say this, Dean Jones is a really talented person, and the people, they can't help you with that. Like, if you're not a good person, no medical school is able to teach you how to treat others, and how to present yourself in front of patients and all those things. And so, and you see that right away when they come for interviews, because they're there for the whole day, and you see how they act. But the other part of it too is that, again, worrying about residency at this point is, yeah. And to answer that question too, is the only person that could invest in residency is yourself, is not some big institution that's going to come down. They don't have a magic fairy dust that they're going to sprinkle on you to make you a good candidate for residency. That's
Yeah. And I'll add on to that real quick, is that we're coming from a place of we want to help students, right? Our goal is, hopefully this presentation gives them some insight of kind of what we're looking for as an institution. But there's so many different medical schools out there, and there's so many different programs that focus on one area versus another. This is just who we are, right? And part of the recruitment process is, I've been in recruitment for 7 years, right? And a lot of times students think that I'm trying to recruit you. I am, but what I'm really trying to do is I'm trying to let you know who I am, right? And if you go to the next table or the next booth, that's what that school wants to do. Because at the end of the day, you have to do the best choice that's for you and which program's best for you. We're just sharing our experiences, our program, to kind of highlight some things that are going to make you stronger. And I always appreciate students coming to us, and even if they don't apply to our program, but we're able to help you be more competitive for another school, that makes my day, right? Because you got something out of this that's going to help you prepare yourself for your career path. And that, at the end of the day, this is your career path, right? We're just here to help and navigate you. And sometimes I know we seem a little bit more transparent than other schools, or a little bit more direct, because in my experience, like, we want to make sure we can give you the information that sometimes someone didn't give to me when I was applying to school or applying to grad school, right? So that's kind of where we're coming from, is we want to make sure that we're supporting you and choosing which program's the best fit for you. And if it's us, great. If it's another school, that's great too. At the end of the day, we want to make sure that you're happy with your choice and how that kind of navigates everything.
If you get a choice, and that's what we're trying to give you, is a choice.
yeah.
Mhm.
And the
So-
last thing is, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's ultimately the choice, but the last thing is that there's a vested interest for people at any medical school for you to get into a residency. That's a metric that they're judged on. So there's a lot of people that are really, 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 really invested in you getting into a good residency.
So moving forward, guys, I know we're getting close to the end. I want you guys to know a couple things before we get out of here. First of all, look online for MCAT stuff. We're still taking applications. There are deadlines that have to be completed before you can get an application in. So if you're looking to get an application in, go ahead and try to submit it as soon as possible. We're doing two things at the same time. We're recruiting our class right now for the inaugural class in 2025, and simultaneously we're recruiting for our class of 2026, which will be starting up in May, where you can submit your applications in May. We'll start your application in May, submit it in June to AMCAS. We get it right after. We're on the same cycle as every other medical school from that point on. So that's one thing to know. The second thing to know is that, again, you have to be confident in this process. We want you to present your best person, your best opportunity. So take some time on the applications, complete them fully. Try to make sure that it is something that represents you as an individual. Our committee is full of faculty right now, and to Jobin's point, I actually have some of our senior level faculty and senior level staff interviewing you, so you just don't know who's going to be a part of that interview process. Treat everybody with respect in that. I think it comes across extremely well, and I hope you guys have some success. Jobin, Moises, I don't know if you want to say anything else after that.
Nothing. I really appreciate you guys taking time on a Saturday. I know Saturday, you guys all have busy schedules, so thank you. Again, Jobin was able to kind of share our email. So if you have any questions about our application process, just shoot us an email and we'll get back to you.
Any last words of wisdom? Anyone else? Dean Jones, Mr. Ibarra, shed your email.
Yes, check your email. You have no idea how hard it is for me to track students down, and it's like I've sent you emails. But the biggest thing is just be yourself, be genuine. Like I can always tell when a student is just saying things because they think I want to hear it. Like just be yourself. That's genuine. Be yourself, trust your experiences, and that will take you a long, long way.
Yeah, I have a law degree. I've learned how to read BS and read BS in people in paper in person. So, I just looking for genuine people who want to kind of go through the process. And so I wish you guys the best. If there's anything that you think be helpful, by all means. And Veronica and Jobin, thank you again. As always, I look forward to seeing you guys on the recruiting trail as we move forward.
Thank you again, Dean Jones. Good seeing you. Nice meeting you, Mr. Ibarra. And I'm sure Joe will have you guys come again next week. That's a joke. But soon.
We're always here to help.
Yeah.